So let's talk about CSS positioning and what the hell that means. So I got, as usual, a basic app with nothing on it, just a hi message, right? And I would like to display a bunch of boxes and see how my web browser reacts to my changes. As usual, I got my JavaScript on the left and I got my CSS on the right-hand side because I'm going to play with both. So imagine I got the div class name equals box1, and then I got something like hello. I'm gonna get rid of the title for simplicity reasons, and then I got also box2, which is Goldie, right? So now on my CSS, let's add some styles, box1, and then for instance with 100 pixels, we did something similar yesterday talking about animation, right? And height 100 pixels, and you know, pretty much the same thing for box 2, 150 and 150. Let's talk about colors, guys. Give me a nice color for the background on box 1. Violet. Cool, fantastic. So background color violet. Cool. And another one for the box 2. Yellow. You didn't risk much, Vicky. All right, so let's use yellow. Cool. Actually need something a bit darker, big blue or green, if you like. Yeah. All right, so fair enough. So let's see how these boxes get displayed. You see, I got, let me zoom the screen a bit. So I got my box 1 on top and then my box bottom at the bottom. So obviously, the positioning of the second box, of the Coterie box, will depend on the positioning of the previous box. So now, if I, for instance, increase the size of the box 1, instead of 100, 150, box 2 is going to be affected by the change. Oh, you see, the positioning is going to change. That's the way HTML and CSS works, yeah? To determine the starting point or the point where an element is displayed in HTML, we need to consider what we got before. Yeah, I think that sounds pretty natural to me. So now imagine that because of whatever reason, I want the box 1 to float around the screen. How can you present the box 1 somewhere else in the screen? Absolutely, that's interesting. Indeed. If you want to present an element floating around the screen, you should use position absolute. And then look what happened. When I change that, you see, now the second box is not affected at all by the first one. It doesn't really matter how large or how small the first box is. Yeah? Because as the first box is floating, it's like it doesn't exist towards determining where the second one is displayed. Does it make sense? What happens if I want, for instance, to display the pink box here on the right-hand side instead of on the left? Right 0, interesting, Elena. Look, right 0, that's correct. And what if I want to put display the box at the bottom left corner? Bottom 0, correct. And then, well, left 0 is default, right? But yeah, definitely we can put left 0. And what if I want to display it on the right? Right 0, that's correct, yeah? Right 0. Wait a minute, why is it not? Here you go, it took a while, right? You see, so now it's here at the bottom. And what if I want to display the pink box like, you know, like a pop-up, not like a pop-up, like a notification in Coterie. So I want it to span all the available width on the screen at the bottom. Left 0. Okay, not against that. Actually, I think that's a really good answer. However, probably that's not what many people will say that's the first attempt. So I believe what many people will say is, hey, why don't you change the width to 100%? Yeah, and then it's correct. You see, well, it is sort of correct. Sort of correct. You see, guys, that the box is partially hidden. You see? You see? I cannot clearly read the content of the box. Why is that happening? Because the position, I don't necessarily agree. Look, let's go to box number 2. Yeah, the green one. With 100 pixels. And in that case, I'll tell you something. Can anyone see anything wrong? It is hard to see. But both box 1 and box 2 are affected by the same problem. So it's not the height. No, there is nothing to do with the height. However, there is a problem with the width. Guys, you see if I hover the box 2, do you see some sort of thick border on the left-hand side of my screen? On top, left, and bottom. But where is the right border? It's outside, it's not visible. Why? That's correct. Look, that's correct, Elena. If I put a border, red, for instance, you can, in this occasion, you can hopefully clearly see that, there is something wrong because I cannot see, the right border is hidden. I need to scroll horizontally. You see the horizontal scroll bar? Why is that happening? I don't want to scroll horizontally. I want my box to be completely visible. That's because of the padding. So the thing is, if I remove the padding, sorry guys, I need to refresh the page and let me persist the changes because otherwise it's going to be a bit confusing. So we were talking about, let's focus on the green one. So with 100%, and let me add some border, 5 pixels solid red. I want to see the impact. Let me move the box 1 to the bottom. Then, all right, so let's try again. So, how what? All right, so you see, guys, I have a horizontal scroll. And now, look, again, let me try to get rid of the padding. Let's see if the padding has anything to do with that problem. Yeah. Look, if I remove the padding, that's still happening. That's interesting, right? Because the box is actually going still beyond the boundaries. Why is that? Is it because of the border, maybe? I don't know. Guys, you see there is a horizontal scroll bar at the bottom, right? Let's see what happens if I remove the border. Oh, now the scroll bar is gone. And what if I add the padding? Oh, the scroll bar is in. You see? So as soon as I add either a padding or a border, I hate horizontal scrolling. This is one of the things that, should be avoided unless you have a very strong reason. But in that kind of situation, that's completely stupid, right? Why do you want to scroll horizontally to see the right border of your box? Yeah? So you see the problem, guys? As soon as I add either a padding or a border, I end up getting an ugly horizontal scrolling. Can anyone tell me why? That's correct, Lauren. That's correct. So the thing is, you've said with 100%. Yeah? And without any padding or any border, that's exactly how it works. You see, now there is no horizontal scrolling. That's perfect. Perfect. However, in CSS, and this is another controversial out-of-the-box behavior of CSS, if you add a padding, it gets added on top of the width. So now the width is 100% plus how many pixels? 20, correct. 10 pixels on the left, plus 10 pixels on the right. And what if I add a border? How many extra pixels, horizontally speaking, our box is adding? Another 10. So in total, how many? 30, that's correct, because we're adding 10 pixels on the left, plus 10 pixels on the right because of the padding, we got 20, plus, look at the border, 5 pixels on the left, so we got 25 in total, and a final 5 pixels on the right. So 10 plus 10 plus 5 plus 5, that's 30 extra pixels. That's weird, guys, that's weird, yeah? No, but we are here, we're just talking about the width. With the height, of course, with the height we'll have the same problem, because with the height, look, the official height is 150 pixels, but we will have to add, how many extra pixels are we adding to the height, guys? 50. Why 50? No, I'm talking about the height now. The same amount, that's correct. Guys, if you need some extra help, do you remember that magic box on the right hand side? Look, 150 plus 10 on both sides. So we got 170 plus 5 plus 5 plus another 10. So in total, we're adding 30 extra pixels. Yeah. Maybe with the height is not a big problem in this case, but the width is definitely a big problem. So now the question is there a way in CSS to control that? I mean, my message is, if I set the width 100%, fantastic, it should be 100%. And if there is any padding, if there is any border, any of that, that should remain inside of the 100%, never beyond that value. Do you know how to change that? That's correct, Lauren, that's correct. There is a very cool property in CSS called box sizing, border box, and boom, you see? Now, I don't have any horizontal scrolling anymore. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many pixels we put on the padding or even on the border, yeah? All the calculations will run inside of the box. So now we don't have any unnecessary scrolling. Any questions? No? All right, so now let's present a slightly more complicated example. Because we've been changing a few things, let me just introduce these changes back to my code. Box sizing, border box. The default is content box. That's why we got the problems. But when you change it to border box, then you make sure that the boundaries of your box are correctly calculated. All right, so now let me change the exercise. Imagine that I want to change the boxes. I want to have box 1, the pink one, inside of box 2. Look. You see? I got box 1 inside of box 2. But on top of box 2, I'm going to add some margin of, I don't know, 200 pixels. So then, and I'm going to display the box 1 on top 0. So this could be much easier to discuss with a paper and a pencil, right? But let's do our best to understand what's going on now. So where do you think the box 1 is going to be displayed? What's going to be the starting point of box 1? Top left corner of what? Of the box 2? Of the full page. That's interesting, Elena. Look, if I refresh the page, you see what happened? Yep. All right, so I added a margin on box 2. So let me just simplify it to margin top, because otherwise it's a bit confusing, right? So look, the box 1, the pink one, is inside of the box 2, right? Let's pay attention to the DOM structure. You see, I got the box 2 with the message codery, and then the box 1 it in theory, it's inside of it. If you look at the HTML, box 1 is inside of box 2. However, in reality, if you analyze the eventual outcome of my HTML, you can clearly see that they are disconnected. Box 1 is outside of box 2. So if I keep applying a margin, for instance, on box 2, you see, these boxes are not dancing together. Eh? What happens if I want the pink box to move alongside the parent one, which is what it should do naturally? Look at the codeity text. The codeity text keeps moving, right? If I change the margin of the box 2, everything moves in box 2 apart from the box 1. Can anyone tell me why? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct, Lauren. Look, guys, box 1 has position absolute. Yeah, we say that. And then look, we say top 0. So we start displaying the box 1 at pixel 0. But pixel 0 of what? Of the parent, box 2, of the grandfather, the app, of the page, of my window, of my neighborhood. So what is the criteria? Who decides what's the first pixel? Yeah? By default, when you play with absolute positioning, it takes the viewport, it takes the white area as a source of truth. However, if you want to change that, the only thing you need to do is go to any ancestor, any parent element like the box 2, and change the position to relative. And then boom. You see? As soon as you change the position of the parent to relative, any child with position absolute will take that parent with position relative as the boundaries. Yeah. So now, look, the child box 1 is top 0, but top 0 taking the green box as a reference. So if I keep changing the top of the box 1, you see it takes as a reference the parent, not the whole page. Does it make sense? Yep. Can anyone tell me why we got that weird margin on the left of the pink box? Well, but top 0 plays with the vertical axis. Imagine that you are happy with the vertical positioning of the box. But what happened if you want to align the pink box here on the left? Why the hell you got that margin here, that space between the pink box and the border of the parent one? That's absolutely right, Elena. Remember, in the parent one, we added a padding of 10 pixels. So the padding is having an effect on the positioning of the child, regardless of whether these items are in position absolute or not. So now my question is, how can we align the box 1 on the left of box 2 without removing the padding of box 2? I want to get rid of that. Yeah, Elena? That's correct. Yeah, you put left 0. You're explicitly telling your box that it should be displayed on the left from the first pixel of the first parent element with position relative. Yeah? So now, if for instance I applied a margin on the parent box, margin left 30 pixels, up 30 pixels, you see? So the pink box, the child box, is respecting that. It is respecting that just because the green box has position relative. If I get rid of position relative, you see, it ruins everything. Look at how massive the difference is. Any questions? Are you sure? Okay, so now let me present a couple of different issues. So let's continue talking about positioning. I'm gonna keep from now on a single box. So let's remove the box 2. So let's play with a single box, the pink one, right? For simplicity reasons. So I got box 2, sorry, I got the box 1, position absolute, box 0, that's fine. So now, if I want the box to fill all the available space, we've seen that before, so we can change width 100 pixels to width 100%, and then pop, the box, spans all the available space. You see, we got the horizontal scrolling that's happening because of the box sizing. So let me add a box sizing, border box. So now the box should have exactly the same width as the screen. You can see, you can visually detect that there is no horizontal scrolling anymore. What happened? Can you tell me, guys, how can I keep that box there, but with some sort of spacing? I want to have a space of 30 pixels on the left and the same space on the right. How can I do that? Margin 30, 0, 30, 0. So what type of margin is Vicky applying here? Is it applying a vertical or a horizontal margin? That's correct. That's on the other way around, Vicky. Remember, you read these properties clockwise, right? So that's top, right, bottom, and left. That's correct. So that should be on the other way around. 30, so, sorry, 0, 30, 0, 30. And that's correct. Is there a way, guys, that we can simplify that rule? That's correct. You can do that, right? So if you do that, the first value is the vertical margin, top and bottom, 0, and the second one is the horizontal margin, left and right. So let's see what happened. Is that what we wanted? No. Look, actually, the left margin is perfect. That's what we wanted. Fantastic. But what is the right margin? It's nowhere unless I scroll. No, it's nowhere. So I got two problems. So the right margin is missing, and on top of that, I got an ugly horizontal scroll again. Look, we added box sizing, but even with the box sizing, that's not enough to solve the problem. Can anyone figure out why? That's very optimistic. I don't think that property exists. No, but the thing is, this is an example of something that you are wrong, but you definitely, follow some sort of natural thinking. Yeah, is there a way to keep the margin? No. Wait, Vicky. That's a classic horrible hack of a junior developer I will never accept in my code, right? So what Vicky is suggesting is to play with 80% and then more or less, but then what if there's 80, 84 maybe? And 85? But guys, what the problem is? If I get rid of DevTools, that's not exact. Yeah, because that's a percent, so the percent obviously will change on the screen size. Some of you may be thinking there is in CSS a property called calc, and that could do the trick, but that's still quite dirty. At least, guys, when talking about, don't forget we are talking about position absolute. Yeah, so not 199, so 100. So if I could position absolute, unfortunately, I cannot fully trust the box sizing. Why? Because box sizing plays until the border. Yeah, do you remember the box model, guys? On the right-hand side of my screen, I got the content, the padding, and the border. And then, of course, I got the margin. But the margin plays outside of the border because the margin doesn't actually belong to the box. Yeah, the margin is the road between your house and your neighbor house. Yeah, so it's some sort of common area. So we cannot do that. Let me show you a way we can easily fix the problem. Remember, I'm playing with position absolute, so I can even change top whatever. And I want to have some horizontal space on the left and then the same horizontal space on the right. So first of all, let's get rid of width 100%. And then that's still broken. But now, we got, look, I'm gonna get rid of the margin as well. And now look at what I can do. I can do left 30 pixels. You see? And can anyone figure out what I'm gonna do next? That's correct, Elena. If now you put right 30 pixels, boom, problem perfectly solved. Yeah? Why? Because here you are specifying the boundaries of the box. The box should be displayed on starting from left 30 pixels, and it will be displayed until right 30 pixels. That's why it's gonna work. Yeah? Any questions? Let me tell you something. One of the classic issues of junior developers is the way they abuse of position absolute. Position absolute should be only introduced when you, sorry guys, there is some background noise. Thank you. So position absolute should be only introduced when you actually want to have an element floating in the screen. Yeah. In other words, if I wanted to have a box 2, let me actually bring my properties back. So, I mean, that code is quite ugly. Yeah, let's ignore that I'm duplicating most of my code, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just trying to present a good example of a really, really, really bad code. Something like that. I need to get rid of the width, obviously. So let's ignore the code application. If I do something like that, or where you want to display 2 boxes one after the other, yeah, that's absolutely horrible code. Why? Because I'm using position absolute where I shouldn't. If I want to display 2 boxes one after the other, they shouldn't have position absolute. Position absolute only makes sense when you want to have elements floating in the screen. You know, guys, when you go to coding, I'm not sure if I'm gonna get any of that right now. You know, now out of coincidence, I'm not getting any of that. But you know that sometimes, guys, you get notifications at the bottom. Someone has joined the platform. These elements have position absolute. Why? Because they float on top of the screen. When I open the notification panel, that has position absolute because it floats on top of the screen. I don't want the rest of the content to be affected by that. Yeah, same with the menu. Yeah. You got some perspective, some 3D perspective about elements floating around the screen. Any questions? All right, so I got a final exercise for you. I'm going to present you a problem. That's a classic job interview question. To be honest, I think that's more common when talking about UI designers, UX specialists. It's also true that that question may, you may have to have the question, but probably facing more senior roles in the future. But again, I think this is one of the things that is quite interesting. So let's talk about it. Imagine that you get a problem. And the problem is you got a single box and you have to align that box in the middle of the screen, literally in the middle of the screen. Yeah. So I want that pink box that it has some dimensions. So for instance, height 100 pixels and then width 100 pixels. I want that box to be displayed literally in the middle of the screen. You know, like a pop-up, like welcome, you are visitor number 1 billion, here's your BMW M3, whatever. Yeah. So you want that box to float in the middle of the screen. So there are multiple ways to solve that problem. Actually, that problem has been there since the beginning of the times. Yeah. Since the 90s, we had that problem of how to align things. Well, wait a minute, Vicky. Let me introduce the problem and then we'll think about possible solutions. So depending on what you want to do, you may be tempted to use one pattern or a different one. Also, guys, remember that now we've got things like flex and grid. Yeah. Actually, as part of the Codery platform, you will find out some exercises about aligning boxes using flex and grid. Yeah? So flex and grid work perfectly if you wanna align stuff in a not using any absolute positioning. So you got, for instance, a button, and you want to display an icon in the middle of the button. Sorry. Yeah? That button is not gonna float. The button will be maybe on the left of some text, on top of some images, whatever, but that's not gonna float. Yeah. So if your content is not gonna float, I think Flex and Grid, especially Grid, offers you a fantastic deal. However, if you wanna float the box, because for instance you wanna display a pop-up on top of your screen, even though you could still use Flex and Grid, I think there are better ways to solve the problem. I'm gonna present you one of them. Actually, let me see if I remember how to do that. I wasn't planning to do that, but because we got some minutes. All right, so let's take that risk. So some people may be thinking, can I do, for instance, top 50% and then left 50%? What do you think, guys? Is the box gonna be displayed in the middle of my screen? Why not? That's absolutely right, Elena. Let me show you how that gonna look like. It's somehow in the middle, but it's clearly not fully centered. Why? Because with top left, we define where do we start painting the box. So the first pixel is correct. Yeah, look at my cursor. My cursor is literally in the middle of my screen. However, you see, the box is not fully centered. So that's not right. You may be thinking, all right, so if we know the dimensions of the box, because we know the dimensions, we could do some sort of trick. Look, margin top minus 50 pixels and margin left minus 50 pixels. Yeah, that's some sort of trick. So if the width of the box is 100 pixels, move it to the left halfway through. Sorry, the other one. Yeah? And same problem with the height. If the height of the box is 100 pixels, then you can move it to the top halfway through. So now if I show it to you, the pink box, ignore the content, the pink box is perfectly aligned into the middle of my screen. If I play mobile, it's probably easier to see, right? You see, on mobile. So that's correct. However, that approach will only work fine if we really know the width and the height of the box. Yeah. So if we know that the box is 200 pixels width or 100 whatever, then we can play with that trick. However, what happened, and this is where things get more complicated, if we don't want to hard code the dimensions of the box, we have some text, hello, Codery world, and then that text has some, some paragraphs maybe. So first hello, and then Codery, and then world. Yeah. So the box has some dimensions, but these dimensions are dynamic because in some occasions we'll want to display something or something else depending on the content. You see the problem? We cannot, in this occasion, we cannot hard code the margin left and margin top because that's going to be dynamic. So can anyone tell me how to solve the problem now? All right. You tell me, guys, what happened if I do top 0, left 0? All right, let's do that. Top 0, left 0. What else? Bottom 0 and right 0. That's not what we want, right? Because that's covering all the available space. All right, so top 50%, left 50%, bottom. The thing is, that's wrong already. Because if you set top 50%, left 50%, the starting point is here, right? So 25% and left 25%, and then bottom what? 75? Bottom 25 and right 25. But the thing is, you're still hard coding. Why the box is so tall? Yeah, I want the box just to fill the available, content, regardless of whether it's something or something different, right? All right, I'm afraid, guys, you are not going to give me the right answer here. That's not obvious, that's not easy. But there is, thankfully today, there is a very cool way to solve the problem. Let me show you. First of all, we need to keep top and left 50%. Yeah, we need that. That's the first thing, even though it's wrong. But now, let me show you something super cool. In modern CSS, you can introduce something called transform. And transform has many exotic properties. One of them is translate X. Look, transform translate X minus 50%. It will move the box 50% to the left, regardless of what the size of the box is. And the same thing with the vertical axis. You see? So now, if I run it, all right, that doesn't work. That's why I didn't prepare it. Let me try to play with one axis first, and then we'll solve the problem. So let's see if we can align with the horizontal axis. You see, now the axis is, the horizontal speaking is perfectly aligned. Now I think I need to pass, all right, because I'm overwriting the property, so I cannot pass it twice. Yes, so I need to pass both properties. So can I use transform X? No. Transform, I need to pass, I think, a comma separated list, or maybe a space, maybe with the spaces. I don't remember the syntax, guys, on top of my head. It's something like that. All right? Exactly. You see? That's super cool, guys. That's super cool because it doesn't matter how long the width is. If I change the width of the box, you see, it will be always aligned. And same thing with the height, you see? So the box will be always in the middle of the screen. And that's a relatively common use case scenario where you want to present the message to the user literally in the middle of the screen. So thanks to transform, now you can deal with that, regardless of whether the box has fixed width or dynamic width. Questions? Yeah, that's completely scalable because, as you can see, no matter what the size of the screen is, the box will always fill the size of its content. Yeah. Any questions? You see? That's good, guys. That's good. So keep practicing, and try to play with different values. As I told you often, what happened if I change that? What happened if I try to predict the expected behavior? If you fail, try to analyze why. And if you got any questions, you know what I am. Yep. So that was it from my side, guys. I'll see you again at 15 past 12. So thank you very much.